Welcome into another special edition of AYS Sports. I am your host, Blake Ruffino, and here we are with our good friends over at Service Hawk Digital Marketing and Service Hawk Digital Media, where they soar above the competition. Glad to be back. You know, when we come to Service Hawk, what we normally have been doing over the last couple of weeks has been fielding your questions and doing a a recorded Q&A. So you bring in the questions. I ask you, what are some of your biggest questions of the week? And we sit here and we have a conversation, and I tell you on social media, hey, we're going to answer this question, so be on the lookout for it. And yet today we're going to do it again. We got about 6 questions that we're going to answer in a Q&A this week for the Vanderbilt game. Before we get rolling, all I ask is for you to do a couple of things for me. Number one, hit that subscribe button down below. Follow us on Facebook if you are seeing this content on the Facebook. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, notification bell. You can hit the share. You can go right on ahead. You can hit the share. Do us a favor. Share to all of your social media pages. We greatly appreciate it, especially if you're fielding your question. Do us a favor and share it, because we're talking about your question here today. But do us a favor. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Craig's Electrical and Generators as well. Craig's is offering a free 10-year warranty and a free mobile link through the month of October for all AYS listeners. You need to call Craig's today for a free quote. Call 504-677-1023. That's 504-677-1023. When the lights go off, Craig's comes on. Term and conditions apply. Again, that number is 504-677-10 504-670-1023. Term and conditions do apply, and that is also with a purchase. So if you purchase a generator, you got to get the 10-year free warranty as well. So we greatly appreciate our good friends over at Service Hawk Digital Media and Service Hawk Digital Marketing. We also appreciate this segment being brought to you by our good friends over at Craig's Electrical and Generators. So like I said, we asked you some questions this week. It's a massive week going into Vanderbilt. I think it's one of the more important games of the season so far. I can make the argument, at least right now, because these games continue to have higher intensity every single week, that this is the biggest game of your season so far. Now, I know Clemson, you could probably make the argument was because you got to get off to 1-0. And it probably was in a lot of grand scheme of things in reference to what it meant, you getting over that hump in the regular season side of things and to start the season. But I do think that this is a massive week, and a lot of things that we're going to talk about here today, a lot of the questions that you have filled it in and a lot of questions that you sent in, we're going to address. Some of them, we'll run through these pretty rapidly. I don't think that need a lot of more explaining that we've already done, but it's still a constant question that we keep fielding. I mean, if you keep asking, we're going to keep talking about it here. So let's get to it. Everybody does us a favor, though, before we get rolling, hit the like and share. So this is from Tiger Doc, on Twitter. He says, Blake, what do you think the potential absence of Whit Weeks and the significance of it, along with Bernard Gooden, with a team in Vanderbilt that likes to run the football a lot and can be very effective and do it? And I think it's a massive deal. I don't think, as I get a good cup of coffee there, I don't think that you can look at Whit Weeks potentially being out along with Bernard Gooden, who will be out this week, as Brian Kelly said that he's going to be doubtful for this week versus Vanderbilt, that it's not significant on the team that you play. Look, Bernard Gooden has been a portal addition where maybe the stats, and this is a lot like Patrick Payton too, but the stats aren't really showing the disruptiveness and the things that he's done on the field and how effective that he's been. It is a massive loss that you're not going to have Bernard Gooden. Now, collarbone's not something that you just toy around with. A bruised collarbone can lead to a broken collarbone, and then you get to a situation where you're not ready to go, and I'm sure that pain is pretty high level. But I have liked what I've seen in the interior of the defensive line so far this season. I think Jacoby and Guillory has done very well. I think that Don McKinley has done some good things. You got Ahmad Bro there that can give you some reps, but I even think Ahmad Bro has gotten beaten out from a rotation standpoint by guys like Walter Mathis, the true freshman. And it's going to be a big deal for a guy like Walter Mathis this week, who's going to see that uptick in rotation about what you need to do. Brian Kelly was asked about Walter Mathis this past week, and I agree with everything that he said about Walter Mathis. The instincts that and the motor that he plays with as a freshman is a little bit surreal, to be honest with you. When you talk about recruiting and you talk about bringing players in, and that are freshmen, you always talk about hey, how high level of an IQ as a freshman, number one, can you just have in general? But number two, how much can you truly expect and the production level from a true freshman? So I think a guy like Walter Mathis and what we've seen, I thought he had a massive play on the Lenora Sellers last week. Against Florida, he had a massive play. He's coming up big in critical situations. This is probably, I would assume, based off just the rotation that we've seen, that this is going to be another big week for Walter Mathis, and a young freshman's got to step up. His recruitment, we didn't, and even going into the season, Walter Mathis wasn't necessarily a massive talking point in that interior defensive line, but now he will be. I think that he can, I don't know if he has the level of impact necessarily as maybe Bernard Gooden has had, but he's done a really good job at sustaining double teams, getting off of blocks, and using ungodly amount of effort to bring guys down like Lenora Sellers. And look, if he doesn't make the tackle last week on Lenora Sellers, he might go for 6. Because you get a 240, 245-pound man running downhill, with all due respect, I think Lenora Sellers can break tackles from anybody. So he makes a big tackle there. Is it a big deal that Bernard Gooden's not going to be there with the level of experience that he brings and what Vanderbilt likes to do with zone read, split zone, counters, powers, waggles, all of that? Yes, especially on some boot action stuff. But I think Walter Mathis has been really good, and I think that he can hold up here if you give him just the one-game sample size. Whit Weeks, look, this is going to be a conversation leading up to the game and then post-game. I don't know how I feel about the status of Whit Weeks. Look, I don't know what I don't know, right? I think there's two, as we film this, there's two schools of thought. And the two schools of thought is, what happens if he plays? Now, if he plays, then you have the question of, well, how healthy is he? Can he do some things that he normally can do? Is he limited? And those are the questions that start asking. During the game last week, I thought it was interesting because when Devon Keys comes in, he normally comes in for West Weeks, not Whit. And he came in for Whit instead of West. And there was a conversation that was asked to me by a really good friend of mine who is a massive LSU fan, like, hey, man, is Whit hurt? And I'm like, maybe, or did he throw up again? The whole little funny little thing that's been going on. But maybe he's hurt. And I wonder if just during a game versus South Carolina, he got re-injured or injured. I don't know. Right now, I wish I could tell you. I simply don't know. It does worry me that he won't be 100%, regardless if he plays or doesn't play. But I do think Donovan Keys showed you already this season when Whit Weeks went out with the targeting against Florida that he can hold his own. And I thought he did a really good job of holding his own against a Florida team that, guys, quite honestly, is very physical. Like, I look at Florida in the sense of, like, everybody discredits the game. I understand that they're not a great team. Doesn't mean that they're not a really talented team, but they're not a great team. But they're very physical. And I thought Keys did a really good job. I think you could sustain it for a game. And I'm glad that this isn't something that's necessarily like now and new. I do think just based off of actions and what we saw during the game, that this is something that clearly maybe have happened during the game last week. And maybe Brian Kelly thought that he would be able to do some things here and move forward. I don't know the status. If he doesn't play, I don't feel completely bad about Keys in the position that he gives you. But you're missing Whit Weeks, and it's always going to be a significant issue. Now, the last thing I'd say on this, and this is a long-form answer of a question for just one of them when we got 6 of these, Whit Weeks is a great player, man. And anytime that you miss great players, anytime a great player is out, there's going to be regardless of a drop-off, I don't think there's a massive drop-off with him and Keys. There will be. Experience alone, right? And what Vanderbilt wants to do to you in the run game, guys, you got to read keys quick, fast, and in a hurry. Zone reads, split zone, the shuffle pass stuff that they will do on you. There's a lot that they're going to present to you, especially coming out of a bye week. Like, that's the thing for me is, like, I don't think that the bye week that Vandy is coming out of is being talked about enough. I know that we're mentioning it on every show and everywhere we go, on every radio hit. You know, I was on two Nashville shows yesterday in reference to this. What does Beck, what does Clark Lee, what does his staff show you in a bye week that you're not ready for, and especially in the run game? You know, I mean, they ran a zone read, split zone RPO action on Alabama, and Alexander took it for 60-plus yards and a score. Those are the simple things that Vandy can do on you, that this is just not the typical thing that we think of them. This isn't your grandmammy's Vanderbilt. This isn't your grandpappy's Vanderbilt. So is it significant? Yes. But, guys, right now it is what it is, and it's not can it be an excuse of why you lose? Yes. But I still have a lot of faith in Keys that he can get the job done. Rushmore, let's move on here. Rushmore on Twitter says, Blake, does this game determine that you go 10-2 or 7-5 if you win or lose? I think that's such a wide array of a question here, man. I mean, listen, I don't think this team goes 7-5. I just don't. However, do you have to win this game to go 10-2? In my opinion, yes. Quite frankly, I think it's very simple. I mean, I thought going into this, even before this game, and guys, we talked about this going into the season, okay? Like, for me, and for me alone, like, we had a long segment on this about before the season started, and we have it on YouTube, and you can go check it out, that the Vanderbilt and Texas A&M game is the most critical games because it sets up for what you are going to be or what you will be. Meaning, are you going to be a team that's still 8-4, 9-3, can't get over the hump, or are you a team that's pushing for a playoff? And I don't think that I never thought that this was going to be a situation where these games, regardless of the record of these two teams, was not going to be that. Guys, you got to go undefeated in the month of October to be 10-2, in my opinion. I still think, even though with Oklahoma it's tough, I think it's going to be tough to go into Norman and win. You got to go on the road to Alabama. Arkansas offensively doesn't suck, okay? Defensively, they are really bad. I mean, guys, let's call it what they are. They're ass. They're Kim Kardashian ass, level ass. They are really bad. You got to go undefeated in the month of October if you want to make a push, because you only got one slip up. And if you have two losses before you go into the month of October, goodness gracious. I mean, then there's no margin of error. Then you got to beat Bama on the road. You got to beat Arkansas. I still think you beat Western Kentucky. And then you got to beat Oklahoma on the road. And to be real with you, I don't like those odds. I don't think you're going 7-5. I really don't. I do think if you do go 7-5, that people going to find money really quickly to make a lot of changes. And I'm not saying that about Brian Kelly, but I think there's going to be a lot of changes. To be 10-2, guys, this is a must win. I mean, you don't ever look at Vanderbilt as a must win. But again, I think that we have to recalibrate our minds to what Vanderbilt football is. Because they went on a road and was in a dogfight with Alabama. They beat them last year. Well, Blake, they were 6-6. Well, guys, they're not 6-6 now. They're not. They're 5-1, just like you are. And they have a chance that if they win this game, guys, there's a strong possibility when they go into the month of October that they can make a run for the playoff, as crazy as that sounds. It is a must win. Yes, it's a situation where you must win this, in my opinion, to go 10-2 on the season to make the playoff, which I think is everybody's ultimate goal here. All right, Paul Booming on Twitter Says, Blake, this game starts reminding me a lot of Ole Miss. Do you get the same level of vibes? A mobile quarterback on the road, critical game against a ranked opponent. No. Ironically, I don't think it's the same vibes. Let me tell you why. I don't think it's the same vibes because I don't think Diego Pavia is better than Trinidad Chambliss. Yes, I said it. I think everybody looks at Diego Pavia, and it doesn't mean Diego Pavia can't beat you. So what I'm about to say does not mean that he won't and can't do things to beat your rear end. I don't think athletically that Diego Pavia is better than Trinidad Chambliss. I just don't. I don't think he's a better thrower. I don't think he's a better decision maker. I think Trinidad Chambliss, from what I've seen, is just an overall better player from top to bottom than what Diego Pavia is. I think of the mobile quarterbacks that you've faced, whether it be, I'll even throw K. Klubnik in there, and I don't even think he's necessarily as mobile as those guys, but he can be. Whether it be K. Klubnik, whether it be Lenore Sellers, whether it be Trinidad Chambliss. Of all three of those, I would take right now all three of them over Diego Pavia. It doesn't mean that Diego Pavia doesn't know this 10-back system very well. Doesn't mean that he's not going to make runs on you. Doesn't mean that he's not going to make throws on you. But I think Ole Miss is much more dangerous offensively with Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. than what this offense is. Their styles are completely different. Vanderbilt, I don't think, is going to remotely come close to trying to wear you down the way that Ole Miss did. It's a completely different style of fight here. One style is they want to jab you. Well, they want to keep you on the ropes. They want to keep your condition up or see and test your conditioning, where Vanderbilt wants to line up and play power football. And they want to play time of possession. They're number 2 in the SEC, the last three, actually number 1 in the SEC, number 2 in the nation in time of possession in their last 3 games. They're a team that will let the clock go down to 1 before they snap it. It's a completely different style. Now, the vibe of what you're asking is, hey, we're going on the road against a ranked opponent in the SEC against a mobile quarterback. I get that. I just think Ole Miss is a different team than what Vanderbilt is. I think they're a better coach team all around. And I like Clark Lee. I like Beck. I like them as a team and a coaching staff. I think Clark Lee has done an exceptional job, but I think Lane's done a better one. Listen, you go on the road in the SEC and you lose, and you have the same kind of scenario happen here. I think we can definitely look and say, well, it happened once, it can happen again. And you're damn right, Paul, it can. You're damn right it can. Gus, who are you as a program? Right? Like, this would be the not more than Bama, because Vandy beating Bama is a program-defining win. It's a program-changing win. However, if Vanderbilt beats you and they find themselves 6-1 and definitely in the conversation of a playoff run, the win is more significant in a lot of different things of what Vanderbilt actually can do. You know, they beat Bama last year, and it's a program-defining win. They still went 6-6. They beat you, and they go 6-1. Are they going to lose 5 straight games? No. Vandy's not going to lose. Based off their schedule, I just do not believe that they are going to lose 5 straight games. So I think that both teams going into this game, it is a playoff or die scenario. Legitimately a playoff or die scenario. I don't think that it was a playoff or die scenario when you went into Ole Miss. I think the vibes are actually higher than Ole Miss in the sense of, does it suck to lose to Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss? Yes. If you lose this game, are you almost pretty much out of it? Yes. So we'll see here. All right. Isaac Samuel talked about the boundary. We'll get to that in a minute. I misread that one. Joshua on Facebook says, Blake, talk about the offensive line. What do you think? Do you think that they could continue to progress and get better here? It's going to really amount to them when it comes into this game. I agree, Josh. Look, I thought this offensive line did a much better job coming out of the bye week and going into the South Carolina game doing some of the things that they did. I think the biggest lie, for what it's worth, about the South Carolina game and South Carolina in general is that they're not extremely talented up front. They had a lot that they had to replace. They still have the best edge rusher in the country. I still think their linebacking core is really good, and I think you did some good things. I think there's been a lot of questions in here, too, that we're not going to answer about Joe Sloan, but I'll just bring it in here. I thought it was Joe Sloan's best called game as an LSU Tiger. I think, for me, when you look at this and you look at it, it's more about the run game of why things were called the best. They ran counters. They ran powers. They ran split zone. They ran inside zone. They ran outside zone. They ran a zone read that Garrett gave and I thought was a good decision. They were very multiple. For the first time in his career, you were very multiple in the run game. Do I think Joe Sloan got a lot of help from Alex Atkins and Brian Kelly last week in the run game? You're damn right he did. And both Alex Atkins and Brian Kelly have got to be much more involved. You know, people continue to say that Brian Kelly, it reminds them of Les Miles. No, Les Miles meddled too much. Brian Kelly doesn't meddle enough, because I trust the football IQ of Brian Kelly more than I ever will trust the grass-eating mentality and football IQ of Les Miles. Okay? The dude ate grass, literally. And I'm not talking about marijuana. I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about here. I thought he got involved, and I thought it was better. I think what Brian Kelly did in reference to making his offensive lineman go from a three-point stance and firing off the football, guys, you quite simply got more push. And the question I asked this week for this offensive line against, guys, what has been so far a really good, not great or elite, but a very good run defense team in Vanderbilt. I thought last week was the best week probably since South Carolina last year, that your offensive line just fired off of the football and actually just got movement. Guys, movement along the offensive line is critical. It's the most critical thing that you can do. So you talk about the run game and offensive line. Guys, I don't think that they played bad at all. I thought it was the best game that they've had all year, for what it's worth. Can you replicate that against Vandy, who's been really good in the run game? You got to continue to sustain it, man. If you go and let's just say you do the same exact thing you did on South Carolina last week that you do to Vandy, which is going to be very tough to do on the road. But let's just say you do it. Guys, you're going to win. Teams that can run the football effectively will always win games, or at least be in them. And it drives me bananas that over the last 2 years that we haven't been effective in it. You were last week. And listen, when you can run the football and you're able to run the football, the decision-making by your quarterback gets limited. It gets limited. You're not having to put everything on the shoulders of Garrett Nussmeier. And you can't put everything on the shoulders of Garrett Nussmeier. And we're about to answer a question here in just a moment about it. You can't put all of this on Garrett, because that's when bad decisions start being made. And the big question was last year, and I bring this up, and there was a question here by Brian M. on Twitter about, is Garrett just who he is, or is he never going to get to what he would be? And we'll answer that next. Guys, the God's honest thing is that you did run the football last week, and you still turned the ball over. You're going to have to limit those decisions from a pass game standpoint. And I think running the football, guys, I'm still kind of fat, even though I'm 227 pounds, but who's counting? I'm still a fat dude at heart. You got to run the football. I mean, it's as simple as that. You're not going to the playoff if you can't run the ball. And this offensive line has been challenged every single week. They're going to continue to get challenged every single week. And good on it. Fire off the football and knock somebody's face in the dirt. I don't think that LSU offensively goes back to the basic inside and outside zone, I think they're going to continue to be very multiple. And I think you're going to, I hope, I think that you can run the football in Vanderbilt. Even though they're the 16th in the country in run defense, I think you can run the ball on them a little bit. You're going to have to win this game. Brian M. on Twitter says, Blake, is Garrett ever going to change, or is he going to continue to be the same person that he's always been? I'll give you the direct quote from him just so we're here. But Garrett M. at MRB minor 5 on Twitter says, is Garrett just not the guy we thought he would be? What did you think he was going to be? So you ask, well, is he just not the guy that we thought he would be? Who did you think he was going to be? A Heisman Trophy contender? Maybe. No, he's not. He's not going to be a Heisman Trophy contender. For him to be a Heisman Trophy contender means that you got to go undefeated the remainder of the year, and he's got to start going off. He's got to start going off. I don't think he's that. Guys, there's been a question, and there was a question on Facebook and on Twitter about this. Has he regressed? I don't know if he's regressed. I think he was hurt a little, and it bothered him. I just don't think he's progressed. I don't know if he's regressed. I just don't think he's progressed. And I think that the same issues that bothered you last year, the same issues that bothered him as a sophomore, as a redshirted sophomore, as a junior, as a senior, as a redshirted senior. I think all of those things and the decision-making has not changed. And so for that point, I don't know if he's regressed. I just don't think he's progressed. Brian Kelly told Garrett Nussmeier something that I think that is the ultimate thing he shouldn't have told him. And I disagree with this on Brian Kelly's part, is that he told him to play with swagger. Okay, well, what did Garrett Nussmeier hear last week when he was told by his head coach to play with swagger? He was told to make some of the same decisions that he'd been making that weren't working. Playing with swagger means playing with and making right decisions. Being prepared. Guys, you're talking about a fifth-year senior who knows on an RPO he's got to read a safety and he doesn't. You're talking about a guy who completely abandoned his footwork and overthrew Kyle Parker last week for a pick. That what else have we seen that in the past that it has changed? It's the exact same. So I'm not saying he regressed. I'm not saying that he progressed, because I don't think he has right now. And has he shown flashes? Yeah, but he showed flashes last year. It's what gave you the confidence going into the year. Guys, this show, myself, I've been labeled right, wrong, or indifferent the Nussmeier hater. Okay? I get it. I understand it. It's only because I feel like I'm telling the truth. Here is the truth. The decision-making tells me that you haven't gotten better there, and I question and ask based off of things I heard that happened during the offseason and things that are happening on the field, what level of work did you put in? Guys, it's that simple. His footwork on these interceptions are the same. Guys, when he's throwing to Kyle Parker, instead of flipping his hips, setting, and throwing the football, getting his right foot parallel to the throw, he has himself, and I could show you the picture, like I have it right here, and this is probably inappropriate to do this for everybody on audio, but it's just the truth. Like I have the photo right here, and I know that you guys probably can't see it because we're from a far distance away. But guys, this is the throw. I could show you this, okay? But it's too far away. This is the footwork of Garrett Nussmeier on the throw. Look at his footwork, okay? So when I look at like situations that have happened in these interceptions, even in the RPO, it's this, guys, it's literally the same thing. Is it a bad decision? Yes. But the footwork is off. Blakey's missing practice. Guys, he's a fifth-year senior with a dad who's an OC in the NFL. Like, what? You move left inside the pocket, to avoid pressure that really wasn't even there, and you open up because you think that you're going to get hit and you don't want to get hit, and you overmail somebody and it gets picked. Line your feet up, flip your hips, throw the football to the wide open guy. Guys, when it's like in baseball. What do they tell you in baseball? When you field, come up to your belly button, flip your hips, get square, put your left shoulder to the target, and throw. You're going to take hits in this league. Newsflash. So to answer the question, I don't think it's progressed. And quite honestly, I go into every game and my decision-making on if I think you're going to win the game or not, if you are, like, I bake in the turnovers. I bake in interceptions every week because it just hasn't changed. Now, here is the truth that we all want to see from Garrett. All of that being said, everything and all the things that we just discussed. So here, oh, of course, he's the hater. Okay, hold on. Does he show signs of greatness? Yes. I want to hold out hope that he can change things. He can't keep doing what he's doing. And I think for me, where I'm at, I think at least publicly, I don't think that they are tough on turnovers enough. I think Brian Kelly internally is. Garrett's got to stop turning the ball over. What did you think he was going to be? Did you think he was going to be a Heisman Trophy contender? Well, what has he shown you? Guys, I don't think that you can say look, I know that, people send me the On3 message board shit all the time. Oh, this guy doesn't know. Guys, the decision-making shows you that he has not progressed in that area. So until he shows you more than one game that he can make better decisions, you got to say that he's going to be who he is. All right. Couple of more here. Blake, what about attacking the boundary this week? This is from Isaac Samuel. Do you think it's LSU's biggest strength is to attack Vanderbilt at the boundary? Yeah. Quite simply, yes. It is their biggest strength. Their corner at the boundary stinks. If Virginia Tech can attack the boundary and have massive amounts of success, then you should be able to have massive amounts of success. Got to get Barryon Brown involved. I think that this offensive staff, for what it's worth, overreacts to small shit. You can't. Does Chris Hilton need to catch the post route when he beats two guys in double coverage? He's got to catch it. We all know it. Why are you scared to throw it again? Well, what if he doesn't catch it? Guys, you're scoring 20 points regardless. You're scoring 20 points regardless. Might as well be aggressive and keep taking shots. Throw that to Barryon. Throw it to somebody else if that's not who you want to throw it to. I don't care. There have been other players on this team that have had drops. It didn't stop you from going to Xavier Thomas when he had drops against Florida. It didn't stop you from going to Aaron Anderson when he had a drop against Louisiana Tech. Well, Blake, they've shown, okay, drops are going to happen. But here's the thing. It didn't stop you from going to Nick Anderson when he had 3 drops weeks ago and you kept trying to force feed him the football. Why didn't you do it to Chris? You know that you can get it down there. Go after it. I don't think Xavier Thomas should be on the boundary, and I think you should attack it. Yes, it is their biggest weakness. Why is it? Because every single team, Alabama, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, before Lenora Sellers went out, what were they all having success in? Let's see. They were in man coverage and cover 2. Whether either you're going to need to cover, you need to attack the man coverage because I think you got more speed than they do, or hit it in the area of the cover 2 where there's going to be a crease inside of a seam when you're running a go or a seam that you can fit the ball into. Garrett's got to know when they're in man and when they're in cover 2. And I think that you can constantly attack it. Unless Clark Lee does something he has not done all year, which is run cover 2 or man, then you got to make adjustments. But you got to get Trades Green involved in this. You got to get Barryon Brown involved in this and Aaron Anderson in this. And I do think Aaron Anderson's primed for a massive week. He's got to have a massive week. Got to have a massive week. All right. There are a couple of more in here that we can get to. Just very quickly, some more questions that fell in on Twitter. Tracy on Twitter says, can LSU run the ball? We talked about that. I think that they can. They're going to need to. Gibb on Twitter says, with only one game sample size of this offense moving the ball relatively well, do you expect that to continue, or are you still skeptical? Gibb, this is what I will tell you. I'm still skeptical because I'm not. Gibb, this is what I tell you. I am skeptical about everything until you do it more than once. So, yes, I am skeptical. Here's the thing, though. You know that they can do it. You don't know if they can score more than 20 points because they hadn't done it all year. But can you do it? Yes. So, Gibb, I do think that they can.